All right, thank you guys. We are 8-3 in our last 11 NBA tier package picks on BrockPage.com. And if you want to see which one of these free YouTube picks on my channel that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for a membership on my website at BrockPage.com. And the good news is we have another NBA tier package pick going off here this evening. We're also 11-1 with a push in our last 13 extra daily picks on my website as well. And if you want to access today's extra daily pick, it's only going to cost you just $2.99. We currently have over 915 members who are signed up and active on that page. And if you end up enjoying this video here today on YouTube, please feel free to hit that thumbs up button by smashing the like button. And if you haven't done so already, please feel free to hit that subscribe button as well. I'd love to connect with you on a daily basis. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and begin. The Pacers take on the Pistons, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Indiana's -6.5, totals 206. The Pacers have gone 6-2 against the number in their last 8 ball games, 5-3 straight up during that stretch. The Pacers have done a real nice job near the painted area. They're in the top 10 in offensive field goal percentage. Malcolm Brogdon scoring over 22 points a night, 7 boards, 6 assists for Brogdon. Meanwhile, Domantas Sabonis is scoring 18.5 points a night, along with 11.5 rebounds. And speaking of rebounds, Indiana's one of the better defensive rebounding teams in the association. They're currently in the top 3 in defensive rebounding on the road. They're taking on a Detroit squad who lost 7 out of their last 10, and they score fewer points per contest than any other team in the NBA. The Pistons are averaging just 97 points a game at home, and they're shooting just 26% from beyond the arc there. Meanwhile, defensively, the Pistons are dead last in defensive field goal percentage. They're letting their opponents make 43% of their three-pointers against them at the Little Caesars Arena. Now, injury-wise, Olynyk and Livers are both still out for Detroit. Duarte is questionable for Indiana. When it comes to the number in this one, Detroit saw their last 2 straight get over the line. 3-1 to the over in their last 4. I like the Pacers -6.5, over 206. Next matchup, Wizards, Hornets, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Charlotte's -1, totals 219. But despite their current win streak, the Hornets have still managed to drop 5 out of their last 8. The Hornets allow more points per contest than any other team in basketball. They also find themselves in the bottom 3 in defensive rebounding. Washington's out. Hayward is questionable. They're taking on a Washington team who should have Bradley Beal back in the lineup here tonight. He's been upgraded to probable. The Wizards are also on a 5-game winning streak, and they went 70% against the number in their last 10. The Wizards are leading the NBA in guarding the 3-ball. They're holding their opponents to just 30% shooting from beyond the arc. Washington also gives up just 99 points a game when traveling. Kyle Kuzma is grabbing 8 defensive rebounds a night, 14.5 points a game for Kuz. And speaking of scoring, Bradley Beal's dropping over 23 points a night himself, along with 5 boards, 5 assists. Beal's also drilling 98% of his free throws. And speaking of offense, Washington's in the top 5 in the NBA in offensive rebounding. Now, injury-wise, Bertans, Bryant, and Hachimura, they're still out for the Wizards. And when it comes to the total in this one, the Wizards are 5-1 to the under at home, 69% to the under for the entire season. While Charlotte saw their last 3 straight fall under the line themselves, I'm going to lean toward Washington +1, under 219. Next contest, Cavaliers, Nets, 7:30 Eastern start time. Brooklyn's -10, totals 207.5. The Nets have failed to cover in 3 out of their last 5 ball games, 3-4 against the spread at the Barclays Center this year. And despite their record, the Nets are struggling to get boards. They're in the bottom 10 in offensive rebounding, Bottom 5 in defensive rebounding at home. And speaking of home, the Nets are averaging just 104 points a night in Brooklyn. Millsap and Claxton are still out for the Nets. Allen, Markkanen, and Sexton still out for Cleveland. But regardless of those injuries, the Cavs are still 8-1 against the spread in their last 9 ball games. Cleveland's also covering 75% of their contests on the road. And they're amongst the league leaders in points allowed per contest. The Cavaliers are holding their opponents to just 101 points a game. Now, scoring-wise, Darius Garland is averaging over 16.5 points a night, along with 2 rebounds, 6 assists. Garland's also draining 41% of his three-pointers. Meanwhile, Ricky Rubio scoring over 14.5 points a game himself. 3 boards, 6.5 assists for Rubio. The Cavs are in the top 3 in the NBA in first quarter scoring on the road. Now, total-wise, 6 out of Cleveland's last 10 meetings with Brooklyn got over the number. As a matter of fact, the Cavs averaged 117 points a game during that 10-game span I just mentioned. Meanwhile, the Nets on the other side, they saw 3 out of their last 4 get over the posted total themselves. 5-3 to the over in their last 8. I'm going to lean toward Cleveland plus 10, over 207.5. Next contest, Celtics Hawks, 7:30 Eastern tip-off. Atlanta's minus 4.5, totals 215. And speaking of the total in this one, the Hawks saw 5 out of their last 9 ball games get over the posted number. They're also 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with Boston. And speaking of the Celtics, 2 out of their last 4 ball games got over the line themselves, throwing out the Toronto game. When it comes to picking a winner in this one, this game's being featured as my NBA tier package pick on BrockPage.com, where once again, we are 8-3 in our last 11 picks in that category. So if you want to see whether I'm taking Boston plus the points in this one, or if I'm leaning toward Atlanta laying the 4.5, there's only one way to find out, and that's to sign up for my NBA tier package pick on BrockPage.com. But as far as a free pick goes for this one, I'm going to lean toward the over 215 in that contest. Next matchup, Lakers-Bucks, 7:30 East. Milwaukee's minus 9.5, totals 221. The Bucks are on a 2-game losing streak, 3-7 straight up in their last 10. Milwaukee's got just 1 win at the Fiserv Forum this season, and they've really struggled to rebound the basketball. Milwaukee's currently in the bottom 5 in defensive rebounding at home. They're also in the bottom 10 in offensive rebounding as well. They're taking on a Laker team who leads the NBA in offensive rebounding on the road. Anthony Davis is grabbing nearly 11 rebounds a night, 24 points a game for AD as well. And speaking of scoring, Russell Westbrook's averaging over 19 points a game himself, along with 8 rebounds, 8 assists. The Lakers are in the top 10 in road scoring. When it comes to the injury report, LeBron and Nunn are still out. Lopez and DiVincenzo, they're still out for Milwaukee. Now, Chris Middleton and George Hill are listed as questionable as well. Keep an eye on their statuses. And when it comes to the total in this one, Milwaukee's 5-0 to the under at the Fiserv, 71% to the under for the entire year. Meanwhile, the Lakers saw 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Milwaukee fall under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Los Angeles plus 9.5, under 221. Next contest, Magic Knicks, 7:30 Eastern start time. New York's minus 12, numbers 208.5. But despite being favored by 12, the Knicks really haven't done a great job against the number here recently. They're just 3-6 against the point spread in their last 9 outings. They also have a losing record at Madison Square Garden this year. The Knicks are in the bottom 10 in home offensive rebounding, bottom 3 in home defensive rebounding as well. New York's going to have to go to work without Nerlens Noel here this evening. The forward's battling a knee injury. Now, the Magic on the other side, well, I get it. They certainly have not been great themselves, but there are a few things that they have done well, like shooting the 3-ball. The Magic's actually in the top 5 in the NBA in offensive 3-point percentage on the road. Cole Anthony's making 40% of his 3-pointers this season himself, 20 points a game and 6 boards for the guard. Meanwhile, Wendell Carter Jr. is dropping over 46% of his three-pointers himself, 13 points a night for Carter. Now defensively, Orlando's limiting their opponents to just 32% shooting from beyond the arc on the road as well. Now injury-wise, Moore and Carter Williams are still out. Suggs is questionable. Now total-wise, Orlando's 71% to the over on the road this year. New York's 4-3 to the over at Madison Square Garden. I'm going to lean toward Orlando plus 12, over 208.5. Next contest, Pelicans Heat, 7:30 East. Miami's -8, totals 213. The Heat's 4-1 straight up at home this season, 4-1 against the number in those home games. The Heat's also the clear-cut best rebounding team in the game. They lead the NBA in both offensive and defensive rebounding. Bam Adebayo is grabbing 11 boards a game, 19 points a night for the center. And speaking of scoring, Jimmy Butler's dropping over 23.5 points a game himself. 5 boards, 5 assists for Jimmy Buckets. Now keep an eye on both Jimmy and Adebayo. They're not a sure thing for tonight. Both players are listed as questionable for tonight's action. But regardless of their status, we're still looking at a Heat team who plays great defense. They're allowing just 98 points a game at the FTX Arena. Now they're taking on a 2-13 Pelicans team who's scoring only 98 points a game themselves on the road. And speaking of the road, the Pels are just 1-7 straight up away from home. And they're also dead last in fourth quarter scoring when traveling. Holmes and Williamson are both still out for New Orleans. And when it comes to the total on this one, the Pels are 7-1 to the under on the road this year, 73% to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, Miami went 8-2 to the under in their last 10 meetings with New Orleans. The Heat also saw 3 out of their last 5 home games fall under the line. I'm going to lean toward Miami -8, under 213. Next contest, Kings T-Wolves, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Minnesota's -2, totals 226.5. The T-Wolves dropped 8 out of their last 9 ball games, 2-7 against the spread during that stretch. Okogie and Reed are both questionable for tonight's action. Minnesota's averaging just 100 points a night at home, and they're in the bottom 3 in home offensive field goal percentage. And speaking of home, the T-Wolves have gotten the W in just 2 out of 8 contests at the Target Center. They're taking on a Sacramento club who's relatively healthy right now, and they do find themselves covering in 63% of their road games. And speaking of road games, the Kings actually score more points per contest away from home than any other team in the NBA. Harrison Barnes is scoring nearly 21 a night, 8 rebounds, couple assists for Barnes. Now Harrison is also dropping over 42% of his three-pointers. Meanwhile, De'Aaron Fox is scoring over 19.5 points a night himself, 3 boards, 6 assists for Fox. Sacramento leads the NBA in second quarter scoring. When it comes to the total in this one, 3 out of Sacramento's last 5 fell under the line. Meanwhile, the Timberwolves are 7-1 to the under at home this year, 69% to the under for the entire season. I'm going to lean towards Sacramento +2, under 226.5. Next contest, Rockets OKC, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. The Thunder is -3, totals 213.5. OKC won 4 out of their last 6 games, 70% against the number in their last 10. The Thunder's in the top 10 in offensive rebounding, top 10 in third quarter scoring at home. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's averaging over 21.5 points a night, 5 rebounds, 4 assists for Shai. Meanwhile, Lou Dort is scoring nearly 16 points a game himself, along with 4 boards. Now defensively, OKC's in the top 10 in defensive field goal percentage, top 10 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed. They're taking on a 1-13 Houston club who lost their last 12 straight, and they also find themselves in search of their first win on the road still. The Rockets are dead last in shooting from the stripe on the road. They're also averaging just 101 points a night. Now defensively, the Rockets are in the bottom 3 in points allowed per contest. John Wall is still out indefinitely, Porter is questionable. Total-wise, 5 out of Houston's last 8 got over the number. I'm going to lean toward OKC -3 over 213.5. Next contest, Bulls-Blazers, 10 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Portland's -1.5, totals 219. And as bad as Portland's been on the road this year, well, conversely, they've actually been outstanding at the Moda Center. They're 6-1 straight up on their home court, and they successfully covered the point spread 5 times during that span. The Blazers are in the top 5 in home scoring, top 3 in shooting the 3-ball at home as well. CJ McCollum's drilling 40% of his 3-pointers, 21 points a game and 4 rebounds for CJ. Meanwhile, Dame Lillard is scoring over 20 points a night himself, 4 boards, 8 assists for Dame time. Portland's in the top 3 in home offensive rebounding. Meanwhile, defensively, the Blazers are limiting their opponents just 103 points a game scoring-wise at the Moda Center. They are taking on a Bulls team who, believe it or not, they struggle to rebound the basketball offensively. Chicago's currently in the bottom 3 in offensive rebounding on the road. The Bulls are also going to work without Nick Vucevic and possibly Green and Caruso tonight. Now, one more thing to add. Chicago's currently in the bottom 5 in the NBA in third-quarter points allowed on the road. So as good as Chicago's been, there are a few problem areas that you may want to think about if you're looking to fire on this game. Now, total-wise, Chicago went 60% to the under in their last 10 outings. Meanwhile, the Blazers are 4-3 to the under in Portland themselves. I'm going to lean toward Portland -1.5, under 219. Next and final matchup, it is going to be Mavericks versus the Suns, 10 o'clock Eastern start time. Phoenix is -8.5, totals 212. The Suns are on a 9-game winning streak, 7-2 against the spread during that span. Phoenix is in the top 5 in scoring on average per game, top 3 in offensive field goal percentage. Devin Booker is scoring nearly 23 points a game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists for D-Book. Meanwhile, DeAndre Ayton's averaging 15 points a night, along with 11 rebounds. The Suns are in the top 5 in fourth-quarter scoring at home. They're taking on a Dallas club who's going to work without Luka Doncic here this evening. Maxi Kleber is also still out indefinitely. The Mavs have covered in just 2 out of 6 road games, and they're scoring only 100 points per contest away from home. The Mavs are also in the bottom 3 in offensive field goal percentage on the road, and they're making only 31% of their 3-pointers when traveling. Now, total-wise, 4 out of Dallas's last 6 road games fell under the number, 9-4 to the under for the whole year. Meanwhile, Phoenix is 69% to the under for the entire season themselves. I'm going to lean toward Phoenix -8.5, under 212. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap, powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are 8-3 in our last 11 NBA tier package picks. And without any further ado, I'm going to lean toward Indiana -6.5 over 206. I also like the Washington Wizards +1 under 219. Give me Cleveland +10 over 207.5. I also like the over 215 in the Boston-Atlanta game. Give me the Lakers +9.5 under 221. I also like Orlando +12 over 208.5. Give me Miami -8 under 213. I also like Sacramento +2 under 226.5. Give me OKC -3 over 213.5. I also like Portland -1.5 under 219. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are 8-3 in our last 11 NBA tier package picks on brockpage.com. We're also 11-1 with a push in our last 13 extra daily picks on that very same webpage. I'm going to lean toward Phoenix -8.5 under 212. And with that, guys, now it's time for our shout out of the day. And that's going to go to David King Fernandez, who said the other day, "Thanks, sir." All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. If you guys do end up getting a membership here today on that website, just keep in mind, You're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on BrockPage.com, you're going to get access to that content all the way through the end of November. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Wednesday to you. Happy hump day to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at BrockPage.com.